looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. The death toll from a powerful earthquake that struck the southern Philippines on Saturday has risen, according to official tallies. The magnitude 7.6 quake hit off the coast of Mindanao Island, triggering a series of aftershocks, some exceeding magnitude 6. As of Sunday night, over 30,000 families had sought refuge in evacuation centers in Surigao del Sur. President Marcos Jr. has tested positive for COVID and will undergo a 5-day isolation period. The Malacanang Palace announced that President Marcos will continue his duties through virtual meetings while in isolation. Rescue teams are battling treacherous conditions in their efforts to locate survivors and retrieve the bodies of those killed in a volcanic eruption on Indonesia's Mount Marapi. The eruption, which occurred on Sunday, sent a towering ash cloud 3,000 meters into the sky, trapping dozens of hikers on the mountainside. Rescue teams have been carrying injured and burned survivors down the mountain by foot, as air retrieval efforts have been deemed too dangerous due to ongoing volcanic activity. And the Philippines has secured $10 billion worth in climate financing from the Asian Development Bank between 2024 and 2029. ADB President Masatsugu Asakawa stated that the funding will support the Philippines' climate action commitments under the Paris Agreement. President Marcos Jr. has tested positive for COVID-19 and will isolate for 5 days, according to Malacanang. The president will continue his duties through virtual meetings while in isolation. This is the third time President Marcos has tested positive for COVID-19. He first contracted the virus in March 2020 and again in July 2022. President Marcos urged Filipinos to take precautions against COVID-19, including getting vaccinated and wearing masks in crowded places. The Philippines recorded over 1,300 COVID infections from November 28 to December 4. In July, President Marcos lifted the state of public emergency due to COVID-19. The World Health Organization no longer considers COVID-19 a public health emergency of international concern. Evacuees are setting up tents following a series of strong earthquakes that rattled southern Philippines. At least 3 people have been killed and 8 others injured since a magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck off the coast of Mindanao Island last Saturday. Evacuated resident Socorro Pontillo described the cramped conditions and the fear experienced during the earthquake.
Ang akong mga kauban murag 50 mi kabuok diri sa usa ka kwarto. Unya murag lisod mi kaayo kay kanang among kahimtang dut-dut kami diha sa amuang gipuyan. Kusog man ang lindo aw kanang linog diri sa amuang. Kusog ang linog dili mi makakuang kay murag gitabyog amuang balay. Ako ang gani gipuyan na kuan nahugno.
Another evacuee, Adelaida Lina, recounted how the earthquake forced them to flee their homes.
Tulog nami. Pangatulog namo kay emergency man lagi kay murag wa man talaga masayad nga kalit-kalit bay ang linog mayog bagyo. Hingsa kada mi truck tanan yung amo mga kuan gibiyaan namo ang among mga butang kuan kami dayon og truck nga sakay mi tanan ka akong mga kuan. Apo og mga bata sab nako. Namakwit mi lagi kay saan di ta mamakit ta masayad og musod.
Meanwhile, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake hit the area early Monday, generating tremors felt by residents in Surigao del Sur. The Philippine Seismology Institute attributed Saturday's quake to the movement of the Earth's crust along the Philippine Trench, a long, narrow depression that forms the boundary of one of tectonic plate pushing against another. The recent earthquakes came about 2 weeks after a 6.7 magnitude tremor hit Mindanao, killing at least 9, shaking buildings, and causing part of a shopping mall ceiling to collapse. Rescuers are battling treacherous conditions as they work tirelessly to locate survivors and retrieve the bodies of those killed in a volcanic eruption on Indonesia's Mount Marapi. The eruption, which occurred on Sunday, sent a towering ash cloud 3,000 meters into the sky, trapping dozens of hikers on the mountainside. As of now, at least 11 hikers have been confirmed dead and several others remain missing.
Ada yang udah turun ada, tapi belum berapanya nggak tahu. Pokoknya masih ada yang di atas.
Sempat komunikasi dengan keluarga?
Anak, oh tidak sempat komunikasi.
Jadi sekarang kita masih nunggu ya?
Ya masih nunggu.
Rescue teams have been carrying injured and burned survivors down the mountain by foot as air retrieval efforts have been deemed too dangerous due to ongoing volcanic activity. Authorities have imposed a 3-kilometer exclusion zone around the crater of Mount Marapi, which is on the second alert level of Indonesia's 4-step volcanic alert system. Now, despite the ongoing risk of eruptions, rescue efforts are continuing with local authorities working alongside National Search and Rescue Agency, Basarnas. Forensic workers are preparing to identify the deceased through dental and fingerprint records or based on marks such as birthmarks and tattoos. At least 8 survivors have suffered burns, with one individual sustaining both burns and a fracture, and another with a head wound. Rescue crews are working tirelessly to locate missing individuals following a devastating landslide and flash floods that ravaged an Indonesian village in North Sumatra. The disaster, triggered by torrential rains, swept away dozens of homes and destroyed a hotel, claiming the lives of at least 2 people. The landslide struck late on Friday, wreaking havoc on residential areas near Lake Toba, Sumatra's largest lake. A 78-year-old woman tragically perished in the incident, and scores of residents were forced to flee their homes.
Tiba-tiba masyarakat mendengar gemuruh sangat besar, masyarakat berhamburan. Tadi juga ternyata dikirakan itu ada bencana lain, ternyata longsor batu yang besar datang. Masyarakat rata-rata lari.
Search operations are being conducted both on land and water, and several boats and divers are scouring the waters for the missing, while excavations and scouting are underway on the shores of Lake Toba. Sonar detection is also being employed as rescuers fear that bodies may have been swept into the lake. The search efforts are particularly challenging due to the vastness of Lake Toba, which is the world's largest volcanic lake. Approximately 140 villagers were evacuated from the affected area, according to the National Search and Rescue Agency, Basarnas. Indonesia is particularly vulnerable to landslides during its rainy season, and deforestation has exacerbated the problem in some regions. Prolonged torrential rains have also triggered flooding in several parts of the archipelago nation. In a significant step towards environmental protection, the Philippines and the World Economic Forum have signed 2 agreements during the 28th conference of the parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP28, in Dubai. The agreements outline a collaborative framework to safeguard blue carbon ecosystems and tackle plastic pollution, 2 critical areas of environmental concern. Department of Environment and Natural Resources Secretary Maria Antonio Yulo Loizaga represented the Philippine government, while WEF Center for Nature and Climate Managing Director Neo Jim Wai signed on behalf of the WEF.
Right. We signed 2 agreements. One was the Blue Carbon Action Partnership, and one is the National Plastic Action Partnership. And they're both extremely important because they actually deal with the environment, how we can protect, restore blue carbon marine ecosystems, and also how we can address plastic pollution. And this actually concerns lives, livelihoods. Philippines is a very important economy, being an archipelago. So we hope that these agreements can catalyze a lot more community initiatives, public policy, and corporate involvement. in addressing and protecting our ecosystems.
The Philippine government's commitment to environmental stewardship was lauded by Jim Y.
One is the government has actually put in place very progressive policies to address plastic pollution, including the extended producer responsibility, where producers actually also need to be responsible and help manage the waste from consumption. Right, so that's one area. The second is actually the kinds of blue carbon marine protection projects that Philippines has put in place.
Recalling her diving experience in Palawan's Tubataha Reefs, considered one of the best marine parks in the world, she said this.
I love diving in Philippines. I mentioned Tubataha is one of the best marine parks in the world, right? Which is very well protected and pristine seas that supports a lot of the fishes and marine ecosystems in the vicinity.
The Philippines will receive $10 billion in climate financing from the Asian Development Bank, or ADB, between 2024 and 2029. ADB President Masatsugu Asakawa said the funding will support the Philippines' climate action commitments under the Paris Agreement.
So, today I'm pleased to announce that under the new country program we are developing with the government right now, ADB programs, $10 billion for 6 years.
The Philippines is one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change, and ADB is currently preparing its country partnership strategy for the Philippines 2024 to 2029, which will prioritize climate action and promote inclusive growth. Under the new strategy, ADB will support low-carbon transport, renewable energy, carbon markets, flood management, resilient coastal development, food security, and adaptive health and social protection.
As we all know, the battle against climate change in our region will be won or lost. And nowhere is this more evident than in the Philippines, as Ben said. To respond to the ever-increasing impact of climate change, the Philippines has adopted ambitious mitigation target and adaptation priorities.
Now, health has made it onto the agenda of a UN climate conference, and health advocates at COP28 in Dubai said the topic was long overdue for discussion, as climate inaction is costing lives and impacting health every single day. In a landmark moment for climate and health, the first ever Health Day was held at the 28th Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change in Dubai. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus emphasized the inextricable link between climate change and health.
The threats to health resulting from climate change are immediate and present. However, for too long, health has been a footnote climate discussion. No more.
Mr. Tedros lamented the long overdue recognition of health within climate discussions.
Although the climate crisis is a health crisis, it's well overdue. That's 27 COPs have been and gone without a serious discussion of health. Undoubtedly, health stands as the most compelling reason for taking climate action.
Furthermore, he noted that a warming planet is expanding the range of mosquitoes carrying dangerous pathogens.
Changing weather patterns driven by human activity and the burning of fossil fuels is contributing to record numbers of cholera outbreaks. And our warming planet is expanding the range of mosquitoes which carry dangerous pathogens like dengue, chikungunya, Zika, and yellow fever into places that have never dealt with them before.
In a recent interview, Dr. Elena Villalobos, WHO Climate and Health Team and the Secretariat lead for the Alliance for Transformative Action on Climate and Health, emphasized the need to empower countries in addressing climate-related health challenges.
And what we are trying to do is to leverage the collective power of all the partners already working on climate change and health, plus all the member states, and basically come together, share experiences, support them in accessing finance. We already have a full package of interventions, of technical support that is available to countries. But what they really are lacking now is capacity in terms of technical capacity and access to those tools, but also concrete access to the financial resources that will allow to do the investments that they need at country level.
According to WHO, between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause tens of thousands of additional deaths every year from undernutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress alone. A thick haze shrouds parts of Hanoi, Vietnam's capital city, as the air quality plummets to an alarming, unhealthy level. On Wednesday, Hanoi's air quality ranked the second worst among major cities worldwide, according to IQ Air, a Swiss air quality monitoring company. Ngan Van Ngoc, a 29-year-old delivery worker, laments the deteriorating air quality's impact on his health.
Ảnh hưởng nhiều. Thấy hàng ngày bình thường mấy ngày đợt trước đi làm thì về thì nó vẫn chỉ gọi là hơi mệt thôi, nhưng mà đợt này đi làm về là tối đến nó mệt hẳn đấy. Mà sáng dậy người nó cũng mệt, mà nó bị như kiểu người bị ốm với cả bị cảm nhiều.
Mr. Ngoc fears the long-term consequences of prolonged exposure to the polluted air.
Bây giờ cái tình trạng ô nhiễm này mà kéo dài như này thì nó cũng ảnh hưởng nhiều đến sức khỏe của em về. Bởi vì em đi làm ngoài đường suốt ngày mà bây giờ về lâu về dài thì không ổn định được cái công việc mà sức khỏe của mình nó cũng không được tốt như.
U.S. officials said that Hamas militants likely held back on freeing female hostages, ending a pause in Israel's offensive because it did not want them to speak publicly about sexual violence. Israel had paused its offensive in Gaza as part of a U.S. and Qatari brokered deal to free hostages seized by the militants during a lethal raid into Israel on October 7. Israel on Friday said it was resuming the military campaign as Hamas had not released all kidnapped women. Miller, citing sensitivities in discussing treatment of captives, declined to give details on the treatment of the women. But he said that the U.S. had no reason to doubt reports of sexual violence by Hamas. Israeli police have also been exploring evidence of sexual violence during the October 7 attack itself, when Hamas extremists killed 1,200 people, mostly civilians, according to an Israeli count.
Only because we haven't made an independent assessment our own. We've obviously seen the reports that Hamas has committed sexual violence, they've committed rape. We have no reason at all to doubt those reports. When you look at all of the atrocities that Hamas carried out on October 7th and the atrocities that they have carried out since, the fact that they continue to hold women hostages, the fact that they continue to hold children hostages, the fact that it seems one of the reasons they don't want to turn women over that they've been holding hostage, and the reason this pause fell apart, is they don't want those women to be able to talk about what happened to them during their time in custody. Certainly, there is very little that I would put beyond Hamas when it comes to its treatment of civilians, and particularly its treatment of women.
More than 100 Rohingya refugees, including women and children, have landed on the shores of Aceh province in Indonesia. This latest arrival follows a surge of over 1,000 Rohingya refugees who reached Indonesia's westernmost province last month, marking the largest influx of Rohingya refugees into the country since 2014, according to the UN Refugee Agency. The Rohingya, a Muslim minority group persecuted in Myanmar, have been fleeing their homeland in search of safety for years, and many have embarked on perilous journeys by seas, risking their lives in overcrowded and often rickety boats. In a recent press briefing, Medicine Sans Frontières Regional Director Paul Brockman appealed to Indonesia and Malaysia, to Southeast Asian countries favored as destinations for Rohingya refugees, to provide these vulnerable individuals with safe refuge.
It's boat season, so there will be more boats. As our film that we're releasing here today, Lost at Sea, clearly shows, people don't take these journeys out of a sense of adventure. They take these journeys out of a sense of desperation and hope for a future. So safe disembarkation is a simple thing that both Indonesia and Malaysia can do. And they shouldn't have to shoulder this burden alone. Governments around the world do need to step up. The Joint Response Plan as Bangladesh is terribly underfunded. It's well below 50% funded at this point in the year. I know that people die on these boats at sea. I know that any blocking of safe and dignified landing may increase that risk, and I worry. I recognize that there are reasons why communities push boats back or nations push boats back, but I think that we all need a bit more fellow feeling and common human sympathy with people trapped in a situation like this.
MSF has been providing medical assistance to Rohingya refugees in Southeast Asia for many years and has witnessed firsthand the dire conditions they face. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angela saying the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.